Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all for joining. My name is Abdullah Zahrani, one of the project management team, and today I will talk about NASAM objectives and outcome measures. Dr. Arabi will join us soon, and if you have any technical problem, please write it in the chat box. And we would like to have this presentation as interactive as we can. I will pause after each slide where you can share your comment or give your insight. So as you know that we have the NASAM bundles and early mobility, VAE rate and objective outcome measures. For the VAE rates and objective outcome measures, it depends on one sheet, which is the data collection sheet for VAE daily data collection sheet. And I will explain each part of this data sheet and from where we need to get the information. Upon reviewing the data entry for the outcome measures, we found that the VAE data, it's already entered with some comments, and also there is less compliance in terms of the outcome measures, which is can be taken from the same data collection sheet. So for the NASAM data collectors, they can acquire the same information from this form to these two areas, which is filling the VAE rates and the objective outcome measures. As you know, for the VAE rate, we are looking for the ventilator-associated conditions and infection-related ventilator-associated complications and possible ventilator-associated pneumonia. And it's monthly data entry for both. And for objective outcome measures, the components are mortality, length of stay, duration of mechanical ventilation. So this is the form. The subject ID usually would be the MRN number, and we are looking forward to receive more forms to be sent to the email that was distributed already. And for the hospital name, also unit name, the ICU admission date and ICU discharge date. The difference between them will be the length of the stay. And the first encounter in mechanical ventilation will be representing the month. So we are following the patient in longitudinal way. And for the outcome of the patient, usually we are looking for the mortality, and the patient might have three possible options: either discharged alive from the ICU, or transferred to another ICU, or death in this ICU. The summary of the data that will be taken from this form will be all taken and placed in this box, with a special note here to follow up the patient for 90 days if he has long length of stay in the ICU. So this is the first example. Let's consider this is patient number 1. The patient was admitted 27th of March and discharged on the 3rd of April. So this patient belongs to March. So the data will be all entered into March fields. As you can see here, the 27th of March, yes, he was ventilated. And they placed only the FiO2. I think the beep was missed somehow. And or the beep was 0. And he was ventilated for 5 days. So total fin days, it's written here 5, which is the total number of yes. And as you can see, the patient was stable during the whole length of stay. And the patient was discharged in the 3rd of April, which is making it 8 days length of stay in this ICU. Total number of VAC, IVAC, and VVAP were all documented 0. And for the total number of ventilator episodes, it's 1. So each patient that you will utilize this form for, he will have 1 episode of mechanical ventilation. Okay, and this will be explained more in the future slides. So here, the outcome of this patient was discharged alive from this ICU. So let's consider this is the first patient, and we called him as patient number 1. For the second patient, this patient was admitted to the ICU in the 25th of March. Okay. So he was ventilated in the 25th of March. So the first column here was yes, ventilated, and this patient belongs to March data, even though that he spent part of April in this ICU and ventilated. For the data, you can see here, he was ventilated for 12 days, then extubated here, because this patient was discharged alive from this ICU. For the manual beep, the team calculated the manual beep here, and they made it as yes for VAC, and also for IVAC yes, and BVAP it was yes. We are having missing data here, and the count for each one of them was 1, 1, and 1, which is not correct. If the patient is having 1 VAC, we will check for IVAC. If he has IVAC, we will check for BVAP. If he has BVAP, then we will document as 1 episode, which is BVAP. If you have any question, please write it in the comment, or if you want to give any comment, we can give you the mic. So if you have IVAC, then or if you have VAC, then it tends to be IVAC, and later on it become BVAP. We will only document 1, which should be 1 here. But now we need to question, was this correct? So look at the data and think about it within you as a team. What do you think about this one? Was it correct or not? What do you think? Okay. Okay. So let's say we are not sure. So the team here agreed that this is not VAC. You can always go back to the National Health Safety Network calculator for the VAE. So I used the same data and I inserted it in the calculator, and it gave me this message in red, which is no VAE detected. Click in the explain button. So the calculator confirmed the team finding here that this is not VAC. It was documented in wrong way. But we still need to have more information in this question mark to be filled, so we can see the future episodes. This is very important for data validation. So the patient was discharged alive from this ICU. Okay, and the total number of vent episodes it was only one, because you can take it like this. You have one patient equal to one episode. If you have 20 patients, you will have 20 episodes. If you had a liberation from mechanical ventilation for at least 24 hours, one calendar day, and the patient went back to ventilator, either intubated or by tracheostomy, if they switch him to a ventilator after 24 hours and one calendar day, the patient will have an extra episode of ventilation. And this is one way of our data validation. When we are looking at the data that have been entered, we compare the number of patients with the number of ventilator episodes. It should be at least equal or more than the number of the ventilated patients. So we agreed here we had 0 VAC, 0 IVAC, and 0 VVAC. Plus, we are not sure if the patient had possible episodes because the data was not complete. Anyway, we can go back to this patient. We have the medical record number and we can check the file retrospectively. So for the calculator, it's always a useful resource that can be utilized to confirm your findings. If you Google VAE calculator, it will take you directly to the website. For the third patient, this patient spent on mechanical ventilator only 2 days. And again, this patient was admitted on the 4th of March and discharged on the 8th of March. So the patient had total ventilator days, 2, because we counted the number of yes. And the length of stay, here it's documented as 4. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we will take it as described here. It should be 5 days, not 4. Because if the patient was admitted in the 4th and discharged in the 4th, this will be counted as 1 day length of stay in the ICU. And the outcome of this patient was discharged alive from this ICU. Again, we will look at the summary. So the total ventilator days were 2. Length of stay, it was 4. It will be corrected. It should be corrected to 5. And the total number of VAC, IVAC, and VVAC, it was all 0. And the total number of ventilator episodes, it's counted as 1. This patient had only 1 episode of mechanical ventilator. The last patient, the patient was admitted in the 23rd of March and discharged in the 14th of April. The same thing. The first encounter in this ICU with mechanical ventilation, it was in the 23rd of March. So this patient will be counted for March episodes for VAE and outcome measures. Now we will look at how many, we'll go to the box and look for how many days in ventilator. It's simply counting the number of yes. It's 11, 16. Okay. And the length of stay from 23rd of March till 14th of April, 23 days. Total number of VAC, IVAC, and VVAC was all 0. And the total number of ventilator episodes, it was only 1. The patient has only 1 ventilator episode. He was not extubated and reintubated after. And the outcome of this patient was discharged alive from this ICU. So this will not be labeled as death. Now, the idea of this is to look at the data pooling, how we take all of these forms together and make them into one single, let's say, data entry for a month. Okay, so now this is a summary for all of the data for all of the patients. It was created by Excel. You can do it manually. or you can do it in Excel. We will share this presentation. So these patients, all of them, the 4 patients, let's say this ICU has only 4 patients for that one. So all of them, they were started on mechanical ventilator on the in March. Okay, so the month will be March, and this is explained by the first ventilator episode in this ICU was in March. Now we will look at the other data to be taken from the form, which is the VAE and outcome measures. So for the ventilator days, we take it from the summary. It was 5, 12, and 2, 16. And the sum of all of these ventilator days were 35. So we will write here 35. Total number of VAC, IVAC, and PVAP were all 0 for all patients, as you can see here. So we had 4 patients. This means we will have 4 episodes in mechanical ventilator at least. And also this data will be taken from the summary box, which is in the right lower corner. So each patient came with 1 ventilator episode. Number of ventilator days, this is 4 outcome measures. So it's asked the same question for the VA. How many days this patient was, how many days on ventilator? And you can see here, it's the same, 35. And the total number of ICU days were the length of stay for all of the patients who started to be in ventilator during March, which is 47. And the outcome, simply it's asking number of deaths. So any patient with death, yes, this will be counted as 1. So we had 0 deaths among the 4 patients that we had. If you have any question, please, you can write it down. And if you would like to have the mic for any comment, we can stop for 2 minutes and get your question. Or I can proceed to the next slide. Okay, I will continue. So this is the form. Again, this is the month, year. Okay, so the month that was plotted here, and the patient was yes in mechanical ventilator, we will consider it as the month the patient will be plotted in the data or entered in the data. The second question will be the number of ventilated patients. So each MRN or each form will be considered as a patient and ventilated patient. And for the third thing, which is the total number of episodes in mechanical ventilation among patients initiated in this month, which will be taken from the summary data at the right lower corner. And also ventilator days will be, again, looking at or counting all of ventilated, yes, from this field here, from this column. For the total number of ICU days, again, we take it from ICU admission and ICU discharge. And the total number of deaths in the ICU among patients initiated on mechanical ventilator this month, we'll be looking at the outcome boxes down here. So if he was labeled as dead, this will be yes, and will be counted as 1. The last thing will be the total number of vent episodes, which can be taken from here. So month, year, which is the first thing, which is 1, labeled as 1 here. It's this one, okay? And for ventilator days, which is labeled as 4 here, it's this one here, ventilator days. We take it from this box, but we take it for all patients collectively. Okay. And ventilator associated conditions, VAC, IVAC, and BVAP, it's all taken from one box, which is labeled as 7, this one here. The total number for all patients started on ventilator during the month of, in our example, it was during the month of March. This is for the VAE. So the data will be like this in the NASAM database. So the month here, so it's March 2019. Ventilator days, we sum all of the ventilator days for the 4 patients, and it were 35. And we had 0 episodes of VAC, IVAC, and BVAP. I will go back to the summary data here. So the patient was started in March. This is why we chose March. And we had 35 ventilator days because we counted the number of years in each form. And we summed them together with 0 ventilator-associated events. So this is how it looked like. We'll go to the next part, which is objective outcome measures. It's also taken from the same form. So the month here will be the same, March. The total number of ventilated patients this month new to this ICU, we had 4 patients. And the total number of episodes on mechanical ventilator. So 4 patients, at least we'll have 4 episodes. And we found none of our 4 patients had or been extubated for 1 calendar day, then re-intubated, or was liberated from mechanical ventilator and again placed back to the ventilator. So we had only 4 as written in the form. Total number of vent days among patients initiated mechanical ventilator, this will be 35, and it's exactly the same as the VAE. Total number of ICU days, we counted, we calculated the total number of length of stays for the 4 patients, and we had it 47. And the total number of deaths in this ICU, none of them died in the ICU, all of them discharged alive. So again, I will show you the data from where it was taken. Mainly, we are depending on this box and also in the patient situation, which is if the patient died or not. So the majority, all of them, they were discharged alive from the ICU. This is the first patient. This is the second patient with comments. This form will be taken and reviewed again. And this is how we validate it by going to the CDC VAE calculator. So again, we took all of the episodes and all of the numbers and we summarized them here. And this is how it was entered into the database. So this form is giving you all the information that you need for the VAE and for the outcome measures. It's linked together. Okay. So for the outcome measures, it's just an explanation of the form and linking it to the fields here. So the month here, this is where we take the month. The first time the patient was, yes, ventilated. And for the number of ventilated patients, it will be the total number of the MRNs, the total number of forms, if you take 1 form per 1 patient. And for the total number of episodes in mechanical ventilator, it will be taken from here. So we will count from all forms, we will sum them together. and at least you will have episodes equal to or more than the ventilated patients this month. The total number of fin days, it's exactly the total number of yes in all of the forms for the patients that were initiated mechanical ventilation in that month, which is March in our example. ICU days, it's the length of stay for all patients. And it's taken from admission and discharge for all forms during that month. And for the total number of deaths in this ICU, simply we are looking at how many patients died during that month. So the data looks like this. It's the same data that we have seen before. And by this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you. If you have any question or you want to add any comment, please raise your hand or write in the chat box.
So thank you, Abdullah. This is great. Thank you very much, Abdullah. Great examples. I think very illustrative. And I think as some of you may have seen, the message I sent yesterday about the compliance with the SAT and SBT, certainly in overall, there's a big room for improvement. So I want to reemphasize this, that the spontaneous awakening trial and spontaneous breathing trial still below our expectation generally. So that's the bad news. The good news is that there's a lot of room that we can make it much better. And I think we can make it better easily. So that's really good news. In fact, you've probably seen a couple of examples from other hospitals where the numbers are sharply going up because they start to look at this data and make a change. So it's very exciting, and I think we need the help of everybody. Now, what Abdullah presented today is as important, because if we make these changes on SAT, SBT, we want to show that it really made a difference on patients, right? So we want to see if it reduces VE and so forth. And without having accurate and complete data, it has to be accurate and has to be complete. If it's not accurate and complete, I think it will be will not be able to tell much. So it really has to be complete from all ICUs for all months, so we can see the trends over time. Sounds I think what Abdullah presented is an example, and I think it's not that difficult if you understand the concepts. So we have some comments. Abdullah, you want to read them? Go over them.
So we had two questions. The first one was about, I just want to clarify that in sending the VA data, we will base it on the month when the patient was admitted until discharge, correct? Whether the patient stayed for more than a month, this means we will not divide the data for one patient to each month he stayed in the ICU. This is correct. We are following the patient longitudinally. We look at the first episode in mechanical ventilation from that month, then the data will be all related to that month. If you divide the patient, then you will duplicate the patient.
So, I think the statement that it's written is almost correct, but not completely correct. So I want to clarify the sending VE that we base it on the month when the patient was admitted until discharge. It is the correct statement is we base it on the month when the patient was first ventilated, period, not until discharge. So regardless of the month of discharge, So we base it on the month, not when he's admitted, when he's first ventilated. But that's it. Because it's very difficult to base it on both, and it's almost impossible. You have to base it on one value. The value that you base it on is when he's first ventilated. So everybody ventilated in January belongs to January, even if he leaves in January or February or March or any other time. Doesn't matter.
For 90 days.
Up to 90 days. Could you give us example of VE case from the form?
Yes, of course. Okay. So what we can do is to use the calculator.
It's before.
I don't have form with VAE episode, but we can go ahead with the calculator. Okay.
There's examples for the beep and the file.
Just make up one.
Okay, it will be quick. It will be quick here. So here, how we use the calculator, we will just write how when the patient was ventilated. Let's say for that example, he was started ventilated, let's say 12th March. Now we will write the minimal beep and minimal phi2. So let's say 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, then 8, 8, 8, then 5, 5, 5. And for the minimal beep phi2, it was 30, 30, 30. Let's say 60 here, 60, and back to 30, 30, 30. Okay, so the calculator basically will tell you if you have back and when. Okay. Now we have to look for, if you have back, you have to go to the next step, which is confirming if there is IVAC or not. So here it will ask you for more information. So let's say the patient had raise in temperature or more than 38 or less than 36, and white count were below 4,000 or more than or equal to 12,000. And let's say the patient had an antibiotic on this day. Okay, and we will calculate the IVAC. Here it gave me yes. So in the form, we will not write the back, we will write the IVAC only. Okay. Sorry, yeah. It will be BVAP. Yeah, BVAP. Let's say the patient doesn't have an antibiotic. We will calculate again. We will calculate IVAC. Here it will ask for a drug.
So that will be IVAC, but not PVAC.
Yes. We will not duplicate it. We will not have one VAC, one IVAC, and one BVAP. If you have BVAP, then it will eliminate the previous episodes. The only explanation for why the team didn't continue with this form is they thought since we have an episode here, we don't have to look for the patient for the next 14 days. This is why it was not completed.
There's another comment.
Yeah. Let me go to the comments here. The second question was ventilator episodes, meaning how many times we put the patient in the ventilator. Each patient will have one episode at least. If the patient was off ventilator, if he's trach and off ventilator, or extubated for one complete calendar day. Calendar day starts from 12 midnight till 12 midnight. If he was off ventilator, then re-intubated, then the patient will be having the second episode. Okay. So if I extubated and re-intubated in the same day, it's not an episode. It should be 24 hours, one calendar day, from 12 midnight till 12 midnight. If he was extubated 6 p.m. and re-intubated in the next day at 10 p.m. he had more than 24 hours, but it's not one full calendar day. I hope I answered all the questions. If you have any more questions, please send them here. And also feel free to, if you would like to speak, we'll give you the mic.
So any other comments? Do you have other presenter or so any other practical comments from other RTs here? Some people involved. Abdullah, any other practical comments? I think one practical issue, don't delay things because it's become really difficult to catch up later. It's better to do this when the patient's still in the ICU, we have his Medicare record. Once they leave the ICU and have to go to Medicare record, becomes a nightmare. So please do it on the spot right away for all patients who are ventilated, right? Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to catch up.
What is the point of having all of the NASAM bundles and not having the outcome?
Well, it will not be very.
So maybe this is.
Well, I think will be just having NASAM bundle will reflect the process of care that we improved SAT, SBT, etc., which is I think is good, but doesn't demonstrate that this made an impact on patient. And we want to see that you are actually what you've done has improved patient outcomes, not just improved the compliance, the process of care. You know, there's always in quality project, there is process measures and there are outcome measures. So process measures is we are doing things better. We are doing SBT better, we're doing SAT better, which is excellent. And I think it's very important. But it will be even better if you can show that this has translated to an impact on patient, has reduced VAE, which are adverse events on the ventilator, really. This is what it is. You has reduced the stay in the ICU. That's a good thing. You even reduce mortality. Imagine if we reduce mortality, it will be amazing thing. So I think that's the answer. So if you cannot do both and you have to do only one, I guess that's what it is. But certainly much better if we want to get them from all. We want to get both.
Another question.
Okay, already we inserted episode as VAE, so we will modify this in the website. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes.
Just if someone already put
Come here.
So if anyone from the hospital has already entered the VAE or the mortality length of stay in a wrong way, so they can correct it by themselves, or we have to correct it after they inform us, because there is numbers is not right.
Yeah, there are some numbers from some ICUs that are really way off. They are completely wrong. They're obviously wrong. So the best is each one to correct his data. I mean, we're going to do our quality checks from our side, but some numbers, like if you tell me in 1 month I admitted 5,000 patients, and it's just completely non-logic, right? If you tell me I have 5,000 ventilator episode in my ICU, it's just probably error, entry error, or not understanding fully what we are trying to say. So we have some values like this that are really not plausible. They just don't make much sense. So I would encourage people to go over them and fix them. So we have to fill the form for new patients or even chronic. Now, as we said in the beginning, we're starting in January, we're starting with the new patients that start ventilation in January. So you take the new patients who come in January and get ventilated in January. In February, the new patient ventilated in February. In March, the new patient ventilated in March. Regardless what happened to them, they may become chronic or not, this is different, or die, but that's not the issue. It's based on when they are first ventilated. So for the month of April, we'll include all the patients who were first ventilated in this ICU. So the existing, in other words, if to answer your question, the existing chronic patients, if they are pre-existing on the ventilator before we started, don't include them. From the first, what do you mean? From the first? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So if you have a patient has been in your ICU since last year, and January started, you enter the, we start the project in January 1st. This patient was pre-existing. He will not be in the, don't include him. Yeah, we can give you the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Do you want the mic? We will give you the mic. Hi, Mr. Ali. Now we can hear you. Mr. Ali Hussein? Or Hassan? Okay. I can see raised hand here. Mawali.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Just I want to ask, clarify one thing. Yani, if I ventilate, patient came ventilated and he extubated after 1 day, we will include this form in our static or not?
So the patient came ventilated and extubated next day.
Yes.
We fill the form because we need to know the number of days. And that's the example here. So this example, the team did it correct, which is even the patient spent only 2 days in the ventilator, we would never know if he will be extubated here. So these 2 days will be counted in the denominator of number of ventilator days and also length of stay of this ICU.
And essentially, he will not, if somebody ventilated for 1 day or 2 days, he will not meet the criteria to have VEs, right? So, but you could put zero. You put zero, so zero VE. Even if his FI2 went up and down in the first 2 days, it has to be 4 days total. The output, so we need the form to be filled. We need because we need the duration of mechanical ventilation. We need the length of stay. We need whether he survived or not. And for him, you put VE0.
You allow me, Mr. Arabi? So how this will affect your data? Let's say you are only taking the difficult patients with the RDS, and then your denominator will be less. And this might increase or make your data looks bad. Or let's say it will not give an accurate information about the ICU. Even if the patient spent 1 hour, 2 hours, then he's qualified to have a form because this patient spent, he has length of stay and he spent at least 1 day in the ICU ventilated.
Great questions.
I will just look at the chat box again. If you have any comments. If I will give a message to conclude, it will be here. This date that the patient started ventilator, the month itself, the whole data and all forms will be related to this month.
Yes.
We might have a patient that's been, let's say, 3 months in the ICU. We still need to get, or more than 3 months, we still need to get the total length of stay and total ventilator days. But we had a note that we shouldn't follow the patient more than 90 days. So after 90 days, this patient will be labeled as alive, and the data will be taken for the only 90 days of that ICU because he's chronic And the second thing will be using the VAE calculator as much as you can. I'm learning a lot from this calculator. I might not be confident about the data, but the calculator will give me a valid way to confirm my thoughts, especially if it's a team and they are having a disagreement between them about whether it's VAC, IVAC, or VVAC.
And as usual, this presentation will be placed on the website, including the slides.
The recorded session
The recorded
in the
and-
YouTube channel,
and the
and the
presentation
presentation will be in the resources.
and the resources. So please feel free to use it to teach your staff. I think, there's a lot of learning experience. Definitely, I think we're learning a lot about this topic, and we're creating a big group of people who understand it fully, which is important. So please use it for education, as well as take advantage of the other resources that we have, the other presentations. Use them to teach your staff, spontaneous awakening trial. And we also encourage, we are doing this data to make a change. So please log on if you have, each ICU has access to the database. So please log on and look at the statistics of your unit and make sure that you use it to make things better.
There's another question.
Yeah.
So we have another question, which is a very nice question, really. Here. It's about if the patient was intubated outside the ICU, when should we start counting the ventilator days? From the ICU admission date or intubation date? It's from admission date. Because the environment outside the ICU is not controllable by this ICU.
And that's why we said from what time the patient starts ventilated in this ICU. So if he arrives to you intubated or ventilated, you count it from the time of arrival. You count from the time of arrival. If the patient moved from one unit to the other, so for the first unit, he's discharged, he's finished. His record is finished. He moved to the other unit, he starts a new record. Start a new record. So from the time he starts ventilation in this unit, this is your time zero. Yes. Very good questions.
One comment about this survey and then. Do you have any other questions? So just to remind you that we are planning to launch the culture survey, patient safety culture survey. The culture, that area or any ICU, it's the team perception within the ICU. And the team is consisted of nursing, physicians, respiratory therapists, and physiotherapists, all pharmacists, all the team that works in the ICU itself, they are forming the culture in this ICU. And capturing their perception is very important as a measure of this project. So we were planning to do it at the beginning of the project and at the end of the project. So currently we are looking for the emails of the staff, because this will make it by the system. So we will just put the emails, and the system will send the invitations to all emails sent to us. Sometimes we are getting only nursing, or we are getting only respiratory therapists, but we need the whole staff works in that ICU. For some hospitals, you might have the same staff rotated in different ICUs. This is fine. You can divide the staff between ICUs, but we don't look for redundant or duplicated emails. For example, one consultant is working in 4 ICUs, so we don't look for this email to be in the 4 ICUs. It should be in 1 ICU. For sure, you will have more staff where you can divide the staff among the units. So again, you said
But you start recording. So your question is, should we start recording from the first day or from after day 4? No, we record all the patients who are ventilated, even if they ventilated for 1 day or 1 hour. But the VE, as you know, the definition of VE requires the patient has to be ventilated for minimum of 4 days. So VE is somebody ventilated less than 4 calendar days cannot have VE. 4 and above, you start to count because then you can meet these criteria. But the data should be collected for all patients, even if they are ventilated for very short. Somebody comes to ICU, post-op, intubated, extubated after 1 hour, you fill a form for him. Somebody comes to ICU very sick, intubated and dies in 1 hour, you fill a form for him. Because we need to collect the data about mortality, about length of stay, all need to be calculated. Because if you exclude this, your data will be not correct, will not reflect the whole population. Okay, very good. If there's nothing more, I think we'll conclude here. Abdullah, any other issues? We'll conclude here. We'll post this on the website, and we'll have another webinar in 2 weeks, inshallah. Thank you very much. Our SBTs, we need to work on our continuous